The world has changed, hasn't it? The movies don't look or sound like the ones you grew up with. The politics that were always present are now so much more vocal. You don't really want to think about all that now, do you? You want movies to be escapism. You want them to be a break from everything that reminds you of reality. You don't want allegories, commentary, satire, or even parallels. You just want an escape. What you want is Despicable Me. Despicable Me is a 2010 animated comedy about a supervillain turned super adoptive dad. Gru, voiced by Steve Carell, goes from being evil to fatherly after stumbling into the adoption of 3 girls. There is no contemplation on the nature of evil or the problems with the adoption process. The plot was inoffensive enough to be enjoyed by audiences of all ages across the political spectrum. Gru's squat, yellow, and eccentric minions became a highlight of the movie. They were the film's mascots and little more than vessels for slapstick. Their dialogue was a babbling mash of various languages, as though they had completed every language on Duolingo and short-circuited the speech portion of their brains. Nothing they could say would offend you. They wouldn't complain about unfair working conditions, and even if they did, you wouldn't understand them. They won't go woke. You are safe with the minions. Because the minion language mostly sounds like gibberish, you can imagine the minions saying anything you want. For baby boomers, the minions have become their cherished cartoon tabula rasa. What did you say, my yellow friend? Why yes, mosquitoes should suck fat instead of blood. What a relatable thought. That is so profound that it should be posted on Facebook for all to see. Despicable Me was a safe animated movie suitable for all ages, whether impressionable youth or curmudgeon-y elders. There was no subversion of tropes like in Disney's Tangled or monsters misunderstood by bigotry like in How to Train Your Dragon. This was an inoffensive animated film for the family, without any heavy-handed messaging, and it was perfect for brand deals with Church's Chicken and IHOP. Turn your brain off as the minions bicker and Gru's girls become obsessed with a fluffy plush unicorn. Isn't it so fluffy? I wonder if I can buy that fluffy plush unicorn. This is fine, right? I mean, there's nothing objectionable about Despicable Me, is there? Not every movie needs to say something or be thematically educational for developing minds. Kids and adults can have junk food every once in a while. But as with those potato chips sold in cans, once you pop, it can be very hard to stop. Despicable Me was a big enough hit to lead to 2013's Despicable Me 2. The film's plot concerns a mutagen that turns Gru's minions into purple monsters. Now, instead of being cute, yellow, and loud, they are evil, purple, and loud. Turning away from the villain lifestyle, Gru works with the Anti-Villain League to stop whichever villain has stolen the mutagen. Once more, no contemplations on what it means to be good or evil. Gru is just good now. Working alongside Gru is Lucy, who becomes his love interest. Do they have romantic chemistry? Well, kinda, but only the minimum amount before things get too mushy for those who have yet to receive their cooties vaccinations. The movie speeds right through all the months of dating before the two finally get married. A prime suspect in the mutagen case is Eduardo Perez, somebody who Gru believes is the ex-supervillain El Macho. A more clever film would make Gru's mystery more complex than that, but nope, Gru is right. Eduardo is El Macho, the villain that Gru must ultimately stop. You don't want to make this film too intricate, do you? I mean, it's meant for families. Gru's oldest daughter, Margot, finds herself falling in love with Eduardo's son, and this relationship doesn't have much development. It is mostly used as an excuse for Gru to get more closer to Eduardo and be more protective of his daughter fancying boys. It sure is a good thing that Eduardo's son dumped Margot. There can't be a coming-of-age romance in this movie. Let the kids just be kids. And what's with all these gay characters in kids' cartoons nowadays? It's not that you have a problem with gay people, you just don't want to see any sexuality depicted in kids' cartoons. That's a good excuse, right? Anyway, Despicable Me 2 is mostly about Gru falling in love with Lucy, the girls getting a new mom, Gru stopping another absurd villain from taking over the world, and the minions stealing the show. This isn't much of an improvement from the first film. It's cute and zippy, sure, but it just feels like more of the same. Just more cartoony slapstick set pieces with more characters and not enough time to get to know them. The film didn't even know what to do with Edith, the middle child. Agnes has a cute birthday party and Margot falls in love, but there's just not much going on with Edith. poor middle child. But, come on, let's not do this. Don't speak ill of Despicable Me 2. After all, it's harmless, animated fun for the whole family. So what's the harm in having one more movie in this series? Maybe even a few more. Maybe even a spin-off series. 2015 Minions is a prequel/spin-off to Despicable Me. The film explores the origins of the yellow minions who have apparently existed throughout all of existence. Their sole purpose in life seems to be finding a master to serve. The minions never really evolved to the point of serving a villain. They have always served villains. They also don't die, as they apparently have existed since the age of the dinosaurs. They're forever young, just like baby boomers who still watch cartoons. And don't you want to remain forever young? The movie eventually settles on the 1960s as its setting, the era when baby boomers grew up. What a nostalgic trip for that generation. Remember the 60s? The Beatles, the big hair, the black and white TVs, the peace and love symbols. How about the Vietnam War and the Civil Rights Movement? Nah, let's not think about that. Let's only remember the good times of the 1960s. Let's just laugh at the minions joining in on a peaceful protest without considering exactly what was being protested. This is not the real 1960s. This is an exaggerated, softened version fit for an animated comedy you can watch with your grandkids. These are the good times from the 1960s you recall from childhood, because that's when the world was better. If only we could go back. If only we could make America great again. Without Gru in the story, Minions is mostly a series of gags in which the minions stop a supervillain and save the day. The movie feels very much like a distilled version of Despicable Me, recognizing the key appeal for the baby boomer audience. It's all about the silly antics of the minions and a cartoony world that does little to engage with our present reality. With the minions now the stars and the setting a rose-colored 1960s, the movie was tailor-made for the baby boomers. 2017's Despicable Me 3 returns to the present, but not entirely. The villain for this movie is Balthazar Bratt, a 1980s child actor who never grew up past that decade. His heists all involve dated devices, fashion, music, and toys of that era. And just look at all these references. I mean, remember Rubik's Cubes and Michael Jackson? Not the details we know now about Michael Jackson, just his music of the 1980s. Just indulge in those greatest hits of the decade, and try not to think about the epidemic of AIDS and crack under the Reagan administration. I mean, there's no reason to bring that up. This was the fun 1980s with the wacky fashion and catchy music. As a child of the 1980s, Bratt is younger than Gru and is an irredeemable thief who takes what doesn't belong to him. He steals valuable goods, unlike Gru. Okay, fine, Gru also has a history of stealing, but he's different now. Okay, not entirely, he's still convinced to steal again in this movie, but like, Bratt kidnaps Gru's kids, so he's just plain evil and not deserving of any redemption. Balthazar Bratt's origin of evil is that he was harshly judged as a child actor. This would seem like the setup for an arc about growing up and the nasty nature of public perceptions of how the media judges people's looks. But it's the Despicable Me series, and you should know better by now. The central plot involves Gru meeting his rich, long-lost twin brother Drew, a tired story concept for cartoons that is milked for the most standard of comedy. There's not much going on with the other characters in this movie. Lucy tries to connect with the kids, and it's kinda cute. Margot once more has a boy who crushes on her, but this goes nowhere even faster. Agnes mistakes a goat for a unicorn, and it's a cute, if not pointless subplot that ropes in Edith, who once more has nothing to do. And as for the minions, well, they temporarily quit working for Gru and go to prison for some gags in the big house. That's it. The minions don't even interact with Gru or his family until the climax. The lack of a compelling story and breathing room for the characters is way more noticeable in the sequel. With no room to grow, the movie feels less like a developing story and more like busy work. But this is fine, right? After all, what is life anyway? We are all just busying ourselves with some distraction, fighting off the existential dread that one day we are going to die. And have you thought about death lately?
You are getting older after all.
But let's not think about any of that. I mean, you're never going to die. Why don't you just bury those thoughts down and watch another cartoon? 2022 saw the debut of the second Minions film, The Rise of Gru. And much like the previous Minions movie, this one is also trapped in the past. A slathering of 1970s jokes about afros and disco.
What's disco?
Oh, nothing, sweetheart. It's something that happened a long time ago, and it's never coming back.
Remember bell-bottoms and record stores that sold vinyl? Remember the nice elements of that era, and not the Watergate scandal or gas shortage. This is a cartoon aimed at children, after all. A cartoon that has marketing deals with CarMax and Liberty Mutual. You know how much kids love those brands. A young Gru is present in this movie's plot, trying to prove himself to an evil council. The flow of the story is mostly the same as Minions, though. There's a bunch of themed villains, and the protagonists end up saving the day, despite Gru still growing up to be a villain. An arc like this might complicate Gru's rise into villainy, but it doesn't matter at this point. We have all learned to accept the Minions as slapstick cartoon characters, and that the movies they occupy are less stories and more like a lattice for their comedic bits. Good old Minions, doing little more in this movie than learning martial arts and transforming into different animals. They'll never change. They won't come to terms with trauma like in Encanto or learn the value of acceptance from Luca. It's good old-fashioned cartoony fun. The kind you remember from childhood. By the time this movie came out, the children who watched the original Despicable Me movies were mostly adults. Gen Z now had nostalgia for these movies. The Minions are now fond memories of their childhood. It's what led to the Gentle Minions movement, which is... Okay, this is such a dumb thing to have to explain. So, around the time that The Rise of Gru debuted, there was a viral social media trend called Gentle Minions, in which young men dressed in suits would profess their love for Gru and his minions. This trend spilled over into movie theaters where groups of these guys would attend screenings of the Minions sequel while dressed in suits. Some of these men were tossed out of the theater for getting too rowdy at the showings, where they would be disruptive and toss bananas at the screen. Remember when the Minions said banana? There is no agenda to their antics. They're just young men having fun at the movies. Maybe too much fun. I mean, why are they so disruptive at the movie you brought your grandkids to? Where are their parents? Didn't they teach these kids manners when attending the theater? You should go get the manager. Kids these days, am I right? They would not last in the world you grew up in. There were no smartphones or YouTube. If you wanted to listen to music, you pulled out a record, not Spotify. Life was so much better in the 1970s. If only we could go back to when America was great. And then came Despicable Me 4 in 2024. And the busy work has increased to such an absurd degree that any hope of arcs should be thoroughly put to rest. Gru becomes the target of his old rival, Maximime Le Mal, a cockroach-themed antagonist voiced by Will Ferrell with a terrible French accent. Due to this villain being on the loose, Gru and his family are placed in a protection program that requires them to relocate. The family has now expanded to include Gru's baby son. As Gru attempts to bond with his baby, he also attempts to fit in with an upper-class neighborhood. At the same time, Lucy attempts to find a new job. And at the same time, the girls are struggling to adjust to a new school. And at the same time, Gru is blackmailed into stealing from his villainous alma mater. And at the same time, the Minions become superheroes in a subplot that is once more entirely divorced from anything in the story that involves Gru until the climax. Oh look, the movie features the brief return of Dr. Nefario, once voiced by Russell Brand. He's that funny actor from that Jason Segel movie you can't remember the name of right now. I wonder why Russell Brand isn't in more comedy movies nowadays. Let's not look up the reason why and just assume it's because Hollywood doesn't like comedy anymore. Despicable Me 4, like the previous movies, also references the past, but more by accident this time. Having already exhausted the 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s, the expected next step would be the 1990s. Instead, the film references media and trends more common to the 2000s and 2010s. Poppy, a young and aspiring villain mocks Gru by calling him a boomer. The insulting phrase, "okay boomer," had run its course by 2020, but it does raise the question of how dated this franchise has become. Based on the Minions movies, Gru was likely born sometime in the early 1960s. If this timeline is accurate, the boomer declaration is correct, and Gru should at least be in his 60s. But he sure doesn't look or act that age. He will forever be the eccentric villain turned dad. The same goes for his 3 adoptive daughters. There have been 4 Despicable Me films spanning 14 years, and these children have never grown up. They will never develop in height or personality. They will never reach an age where they have to leave home. They will never depart for college and fill their minds with liberal and leftist ideas. They will never cut off their parents because of a political disagreement. They won't change. They will remain adorable little girls.
Forever.
They will never be as snotty as Poppy, who plays Dance Dance Revolution to the tune of Dragon Forces Through the Fire and Flames, and do not bother looking up when those first came out. Gru ends up helping Poppy steal a honey badger, leading to a series of jokes about how the honey badger does not care. Remember those jokes? They're not old. Don't bother looking up when they were last relevant. These jokes are not old. You're not old. You might be a baby boomer, but you're young at heart. That meme on Facebook said so. You're still that kid who loves Saturday morning cartoons. Time can stand still when these Despicable Me and Minions movies grace the theaters every few summers. And yet, time is still present in these movies. These movies stew in the past for all the nostalgic comedy and refuse to grow up in the present. Sure, other animated films might show character growth in franchises like Toy Story and Inside Out, but not Despicable Me and Minions. The little girls in these movies won't grow up to leave you. Leave Gru. And Gru will never get old. The Minions are canonically confirmed to never get old either. Aside from adding more characters, nothing will change in these movies. And why should they? Why can't we just enjoy these mindless animated films without thinking all that much about them? Why did this video even show up in my feed? Who does this movieswithmark guy think he is? He can't just enjoy these movies that audiences love, especially baby boomers. No, he has to go online and make a video about it. This is the problem with millennials these days. Everybody is so disconnected with their phones and social media. We don't talk about movies in person anymore. No, now we send emojis. Why don't my children send me more texts?
Can't you just let the boomers have this one? Can't they just have one non-woke mainstream movie franchise that they can gravitate towards? Can't you just leave them alone to post their inoffensive memes with Minions among their grotesquely offensive conservative ones? Why does the world have to be this way?
In a Slate article from 2022, several baby boomers were interviewed about their preference for Minions. Sandra Motley stated, quote, "For me, when I watch a film, whether it's animated or series, I want something fun. The Minions, they seem so happy. They're a little silly. It's so far removed from real life, you can immerse yourself and get away from reality, if you will." Angela Dickey, a mother with a grown-up son, remarked, quote, "Every parent longs for the days when their kid was crawling around in diapers. Minions bring back some of the silly things they did and the cuteness of it, and it's a healthy way to remember." Teresa Trapuka, a mother Minions fan and Minions collector, said, quote, "It doesn't really bother me if people don't like Minions or judge me for liking Minions. My youngest daughter can't stand Minions and hates the fact that I have Minions all over my house. I don't think it's a matter that it's weird that it appeals to adults because every animated movie is written in the mindset that a parent is taking a kid to these movies." There is something understandable and somber about these admissions. There's clearly a longing for something that has been lost. It seems to be nostalgia, and there's nothing wrong with nostalgia every now and then. But that desire to return to the past, that thirst for turning back the clock, to tend to kids again, to be a kid again, is how we ended up in the political nightmare that we now occupy. Because of this, we should be mindful about how the most innocent of cartoons with the most nebulous of framing can easily be co-opted for something far more despicable. And look, I know that an aged audience probably won't take much advice from a YouTube essay by a millennial. For this reason, I will attempt direct contact with boomers by speaking entirely in Minionese. I will provide translations for those who are not fluent.
Bello, kakona ta globo ta van akain tis noista I daskeri. Ikano ta minions namasim yitus innocuous koi pendum kobe comforting. But ukele da tot peak kam ta minions. There's a et globo de gnor capi bada. I cano pick pudum bigambal. Movies pudum bi agi to don't queer da bed com suk fib bets. But the mindset is wa, ada midu pig tas mismo, badanama surely gnur kapai da bada. You don't kele da gobta daga, tu solamo da pona vos al talamo. The minion sama adut bi bada, tu pudum adut dagsip da bi gnur. But triago da copa mas gnur ye chil kapi en tamims. Lot nub impertinence ye longo. Ortanunu isigi.